This tutorial is for the basic graphing tutorial to give you a feel for the tools when you're looking at graphs. There are quite a few, so let's go. So obviously we're in the graphing menu. The graphing is up. We have the graph type pull down here on the left hand side. We could change that, say, to distance and activate that. So we have to activate it before it'll plot. We can change the prism name and activate that, or we can go with a cluster and activate that, and in that way we can plot out the whole cluster. So when we have a lot of graphs on the one page in the one window, sometimes it can get a bit messy to see what's going on, and we can hover over certain graphs and bring them to the fore. So in this particular case we've got half a dozen graphs on the page, but just by hovering over it we can see that 490506 is the graph that we're looking at there. Or if we want to look at the blue one and bring up 504, that'll come up instead. So this is very, very handy when you're trying to differentiate when you've got a whole bunch of graphs on the one page. Also, we can change the Y scale. So in this particular case we've got a Y scale of automatic, but if we change it, say, to 50 and 50, well, the minimum would actually be -50, I beg your pardon, and then activate that, and then when we go through the graphs we can see them at the same scale, which is very important at some times. To change that, we just simply set the, we can't see it, there it is, set the auto graph back and then regraph it, and it'll come back to auto. Also, when we're looking at a bunch of stuff, we can zoom in. If you look at the toolbar inside of the graph itself, we have a zoom window. By pressing that, the zoom will stay depressed when it's on. So by going to the center of the window we can zoom it up, and we can move around the graph with the scroll bars as well. So we can get right amongst the detail. If we hover over any one point, we'll get all the details for that particular point. To zoom out, we simply undo this zoom button so it goes back to normal again. There are two sets of toolbars here. If we do a right click, we'll get the main menu will come up for the graphing, and we can go to toolbars, annotation toolbar, so we bring up the second toolbar. The second toolbar is very, very handy. It's got things like drawing objects and balloons and different things, but also we can put by going to the arrow we can do an annotation, and when we do the annotation it'll ask if you want the gradient to be displayed, and we go yes in this particular case, and it'll display the gradient. Now if we drag the position of this up so we can see it a bit, we're saying 0.329 units per day, so it'll calculate the gradient of that line, which can be a handy little tool to use. So that mainly covers the main areas. If we go to any one particular graph, we can, of course, plot different graph types, or we can go to a individual graph. If we want to go through each prism in that cluster, we simply go to the first one, and by clicking on the graph area and using the arrow keys on the keyboard, then we can go through all the graphs very quickly individually. If you remember in the old quick slope, we used to put the focus up here on the actual toolbar. Now we put it on the window itself. So thank you very much. There are a lot of other little tools that we can use, but probably the most important ones to go through in one of the future tutorials, of course, is the steps and where we go from there. Just before we go, there are two sets of menus that you should be aware of. One is if you have the mouse away from the data and do a right click, you will get the main menu will come up for the graph. However, if you hover over a point and do a click, then you will get the point menu will come up to be able to activate certain functions, as in removing steps and points. So thank you very much for this tutorial, and we'll close it down now and we'll go.